All right, welcome back to the 2024 season preview and prediction videos. We have wrapped up with the college football playoff. Now we're going to look at the rest of last year's top 25 in no particular order. I am using last year's playoff rankings, by the way, in case you were wondering how I'm getting these teams. Now, I am looking at these in no particular order, and we're going to look today at the team that a lot of people feel should have made the playoff, but made one crucial mistake that cost them a chance at the playoffs. We're looking at the Georgia Bulldogs. I'm joined today by Georgia football YouTuber Viktube Productions. Viktube, introduce yourself.
Hey, what's up, y'all? Yeah, as you know, you probably already know me. I'm Viktube Productions, and I am a big uh Georgia fan. So obviously the season last year didn't turn out the way we wanted, but we're back this year. So.
All right, thank you for that, Viktube. Let's start with a recap of last season. We kind of just summed it up anyway. Georgia, third consecutive undefeated regular season. And then they make it to the SEC championship. And that one big screw up that I alerted to earlier was the SEC championship game falling by 3 points to Alabama. Obviously, Alabama would then take it and make a playoff appearance of their own. But the big what if, there's a big what if for Georgia, which is that if they would have won the game, would they have won their third consecutive national championship, or would Michigan still have won? That's a big what if of last year, and maybe one of the biggest of, let's see, all time in terms of the what ifs of college football. I would have argued that Georgia was probably one of the best four teams, but obviously with their loss to Alabama and they didn't have the conference championship, you couldn't put them there. Would you have said that Georgia is one of the best four teams last year, Vic?
Yeah. I would have, but I also don't think that we should have been in the playoffs. I think that you got to w- win your games. We had our chance and we couldn't capitalize. And I mean, just understand that Michigan and Washington, both undefeated, you had to put them in, and then obviously you had to put Alabama in because they just beat the number one team, and then you can't put in Alabama without putting in Texas because they beat Alabama. So I felt like there was really no room for us in there. So.
And then, not to mention, if you had left Alabama out, you would probably had to put in the undefeated Florida State in there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Georgia would instead go on to finish ranked number 6 in the playoff rankings. They then go on to absolutely put a whopping on Florida State.
Yep.
I believe that's the biggest blowout in bowl history, isn't it?
Yeah, like 63-3. Yes, we beat them by 60 points. Yeah, I believe that's right. Yeah.
Now, on to what they've kept, gained, and lost. Biggest thing they kept, obviously, their coaching staff. Kirby Smart, still the head coach. Mike Bobo is still the offensive coordinator, and Glenn Schumann remains as the defensive coordinator. They also are going to keep a big asset to them at the quarterback position, Carson Beck. A lot of people argue that Carson Beck was the best passing quarterback in the entire SEC last year. In terms of big gains, I would say the biggest gain is probably Trevor Etienne. He's your transfer running back coming over from Florida.
Yep.
Probably the lone bright, or one of the two lone bright spots of Florida last year, because Florida is just absolutely terrible. Biggest loss for Georgia come in the passing attack. I would say it's Lad McConkey, right receiver, and Brock Bowers, tight end. Would you say that's probably the two biggest losses as well?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Who would you say is the biggest gain Georgia had?
Yeah, the biggest gain. Yeah, well, on the offense. Yeah, I guess other than Trevor Etienne, I'd say that Colby Young was also a good pickup. Yeah, getting him out of the transfer portal from Miami. So and I mean he looked really good in the spring game. Made some great catches. So yeah,
In terms of people, I would say you should probably keep an eye out. Now that Brock Bowers is going, you should keep probably more of an eye out on Oscar Delp.
yep,
He was
Oscar
called on
Delp.
a
Yeah,
lot to fill in because there was a brief period where Brock Bowers was injured last year. Oscar
yeah,
Delp filled it in. Expect him to have a bigger role now that Brock Bowers is completely gone from the offense.
yeah.
And really
Yeah,
and truly,
I do think that Oscar Delp is probably going to have a big year. So, and we also brought in that tight end from Stanford, Juracek, and he was really good last year too. So,
it's also worth noting that Georgia did bring in the number one recruiting class. How much does that help them this year? We have yet to see, but Georgia is also recruiting in the top five for the past almost 10 years, it feels like.
yeah,
So, really and truly, they're going to be stacked with talent. And really, as long as Kirby Smart's there, you really don't have to worry about recruiting because Kirby's always going to recruit in the top five,
yeah,
whatever. All right, so now let's move on to Georgia's schedule. It's also worth noting that Georgia has a regular season game winning streak. I believe currently it is at 39. I want to say it is. It dates all the way back to 2020 after the Florida game.
yeah,
All right. So starting off in what's technically a neutral site, though you could argue it's more of a home game for Georgia because it is in Atlanta, Georgia, at Mercedes-Benz Stadium against the Clemson Tigers. This is going to be a noon game, so pretty much a kickoff to the season on week one, even though you do have week zero. What's your thoughts and what do you think that the result of the game is going to be, Vic?
yeah. I don't really expect uh, this game to be close at all. I mean, yes, last time we played Clemson. It was like 10-3. Yeah, we couldn't even score an offensive touchdown in that game. Yeah, I don't think that will be the case at all. Because I mean, JT Daniels was playing hurt um, in that game, so I expect us to score a lot more points this time. Yeah, also, yeah, I think that this game yeah, might be kind of like when we played Oregon to open the season in 2022, and about how we beat them like 40 something to 7. So I'm expecting that that's what we're gonna do. We're just gonna come out and yeah,
So you think it's a win for Georgia in the Clemson game?
yes, yeah, I think so. Yeah,
Look, Dabo Sweeney, probably one of the better in-game coaches in college football. That's the reason why he has two natties. But off the field is where things are getting a little bit rusty. He's still in the mindset of don't use the transfer portal, which I get his point. You can't build a roster solely off a transfer portal, and recruiting is going to build more cohesion over time than the transfer portal is. But if you got holes in your team, which Clemson's had holes in their team over recent years, the best way to plug up those holes is the transfer portal. If anything, to give your guys more competition to better them or possibly even take over the starting roles. But Dabo Sweeney hasn't been using the transfer portal. It's it's starting to show how it's costing them last year. I think it continues to show how it's costing them this coming year. And then also, I do not really have a lot of confidence in Cade Klubnik to pull off a big
yeah,
win.
yeah. Neither
So,
do I.
so give me Georgia in the game against Clemson. Then moving on, Tennessee Tech. I'm pretty sure we both know where that's going to
Yeah,
head.
yeah.
Tennessee Tech, FCS team. Yeah, give me Georgia there. And then you have the first SEC game against the Kentucky Wildcats in Lexington, Kentucky. What you think about this game against Kentucky?
Well, yeah, Kentucky, yeah, I mean, yeah, I mean, they're all right as a team. I mean, occasionally they'll have that, like that pop up year when they'll win, 10 games, but yeah, and then Kentucky also got our backup quarterback from last year, Br- Brock Vandergrift. Now he was a former uh 5-star recruit. They also got one of our linebackers, Jamon Dumas Johnson. So, uh, but anyway, I don't think that that all of that is really gonna be enough. So I think we're still gonna get the win.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it is a wave for Georgia, but I think Georgia's. Hold on, something popped up. Just okay. There we go. Georgia's much just head and shoulders better than Kentucky. Now, Kirby Smart will admit that Kentucky is a very physical team, which has caused Georgia some problems, but they never lead to losses. So I think Georgia's gonna be able to handle their business against Kentucky,
Mhm.
giving you a 3-0 start going into the first bye week. Remember that because there's an extra Saturday in between Labor Day weekend and Thanksgiving weekend, they give the teams each an extra bye week to fill out that 12-game schedule. And then that bye week is very conveniently placed because after that bye week, you have to travel to Bryant Denny Stadium to take on the Alabama Crimson Tide. Let you give your pick there.
Yep. Yeah, yeah. That I'm gonna have to go with my dogs. Saban, retired, so Kirby is now uh the best coach in the country right now. So yeah, I think it's really time for Kirby to start running the show. I think it would be really bad if Saban is gone, but we're still losing to Alabama anyway, and Kalen DeBoer. So yeah, I think we're going to get the win. Yeah. Saban was really the only one who could really stop Kirby, and he's gone now. So
And that actually brings me to a good point. I called into Lou's show a few weeks ago and brought up the Bama's schedule, which includes the game. When you really think about it, Kirby Smart, if he wants to quiet the doubters that say he can't get over the Alabama hump, he has to win this game because there's been plenty of instances where Alabama was not better than Georgia, but still managed to win. But you can justify those wins for Bama by saying, oh, Nick Saban's the greatest of all time. He's going to outcoach anybody, and outcoaching Kirby Smart is the reason why he constantly beats Kirby Smart. You don't have Saban this year. We have Kalen DeBoer coming in from Washington, and I also brought up this point with Ballard last week that it's this game for Alabama is going to be Kalen DeBoer's first ever game against an SEC opponent.
yeah.
You could not have asked for a more difficult opponent for your SEC debut than Kirby Smart, Carson Beck, and the Georgia Bulldogs. I really think Georgia has to win this game, and I think they do win the game on the road against the Alabama Crimson Tide, much to the chagrin of me. But you can't always win it, and I think Georgia is much more in a better position to win the game than Alabama is. So I'm going to give Georgia the nod. So then you have to go on the road. No, scratch that. It's at home on homecoming against the Auburn Tigers. What's your thoughts against or on the Auburn Tigers, I should say?
Yeah. What I think is that said, yes, I know that that the game was close last year. That Auburn played us tough last year, but that was in Jordan Hare. I mean, they always seem to play better there than they do in than they do in versus playing in Athens or Tuscaloosa. Uh, so yeah, I'm going to give that as a win for us too. So
The only thing that would concern me about the Georgia game versus Auburn is the way it's positioned on the schedule right after the Alabama game. Like, let's say it's a close game, barely managed to squeak one out, and then you have to play Auburn. But crowd support's going to be rocking because it's homecoming for Georgia. It's a much different beast when you're playing in Stanford Stadium against Auburn versus when you're playing in Jordan Hare against Auburn. Hugh Freeze, I have confidence he's going to eventually build Auburn into where they want to go. But it was just Auburn was just so wrecked over from the Brian Harsin era that Hugh Freeze has to give it time to build it up. I do not think they're in a position to beat a big SEC school yet. I think Georgia gets the win over Auburn. Now staying in Sanford Stadium on October 12th, play the Mississippi State Battle of the Bulldogs. How about that?
yep,
Your thoughts, Vic?
yep, I don't think Mississippi State is really gonna be any good this year. I mean, they were bad last year. They ended up going what, like 5-7. This year they got a new coach in Jeff Levy, so I don't really expect them to really be much better. So
Kind of a sad situation what happened to Mississippi State. The untimely passing of Mike Leach right before the bowl game of 2022. Then they promote internally to give it to Zach Arnett. He doesn't work out that well, so they fire him in the first year. And they didn't really learn from their mistakes because they promoted another guy who has no head coaching experience in the form of Jeff Levy. And especially with how tough the SEC is, no more divisions. You got Texas and Oklahoma added in. Mississippi State's in for a rough year, and I think they're probably it could be a running clock in the second half situation. Give me the Georgia Bulldogs in the Battle of the Bulldogs by a dominant score.
yeah,
And then you have the second real big test of the season against SEC newcomer, the Texas Longhorns. Any thoughts?
yeah. I mean yeah, the short horns. Yeah,
Yeah, that
but anyway, uh yeah, let's see. Yeah, this will be a tough road environment for us, but yeah, I think that we're still gonna get the win.
yeah, Texas I could say is probably one of the four toughest opponents on Georgia's schedule. However, Georgia does get the benefit here. It is on the road in Austin, Texas. However, you look at Texas's schedule, and the game before they play Georgia is actually their rivalry game against Oklahoma, which that's always a emotional game between the two of them, no matter how bad Oklahoma is, how good Texas is, or how good Oklahoma is and how bad Texas is. It's always an emotional rivalry game, hence why it's probably in the top 5 of college football rivalries. I think Georgia benefits in that way because Texas is going to be having to come off of that emotional high playing against their rival and then having to play who I believe is Texas's toughest opponent in the form of Georgia. I think Georgia is going to be able to beat Texas by virtue of that. Then you have your second bye week after the Texas game, and you play your rivals, even though you're clearly better, the Florida Gators.
We get Florida. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Did we get a bye week before this game?
Yeah, you get a bye week right in
Yeah,
between the
that's right.
Texas game
Yeah,
and
cause
the Florida game.
yeah, cause we always get get a bye before we play Florida. Yeah, both of us do. So, but anyway, yeah, Florida is going to be absolutely terrible this year. Yeah, yeah. Billy Napier has one foot out the door. Uh, yeah, so I think this should be a pretty dominant win for us. Yeah.
Yeah, I would have to agree because Florida, what can I say about Florida that hasn't already been said about how terrible they are? Billy Napier, I had confidence in him because of what he did with Louisiana, but he just hasn't worked out well. He can't manage a group, I'm sorry, a Power Five team the right way. It would not surprise me if right after the game or even before the game, he's fired to start a new era and try to get the memory of him out of there. I think Georgia should be able to probably run it down their throats against Florida.
With their own running back.
Yeah.
With Trevor Etienne. So yeah.
Then you go on the road to Vaughn Hemingway Stadium in Oxford, Mississippi, to play who I would argue is actually Georgia's toughest opponent of the year, Ole Miss. What's your thoughts here?
Yeah, I think that this is where we catch a loss here. I think it's kind of like a loss that you don't expect. It would kind of be like you expect y- us if we're gonna lose a game, it'll be to Alabama or Texas. You know I think that everyone is not really thinking about Ole Miss. Yeah, plus I do think J- Jackson Dart is a really good quarterback, and you, Lane Kiffin is good at scheming, um, offense. So yeah, they did bring in a big transfer portal class. So this is where I think we catch our first L. So
Yeah, this is kind of the toughest game on Georgia's schedule to predict because Ole Miss is going to be a good team this year, but they have not shown yet the ability to win a big game. We constantly think they're going to beat Alabama, and they don't. Remember 2022, a lot of people thought they would beat LSU, who was unranked at the time, but then LSU beat them. Biggest win in the SEC so far for Ole Miss, probably last year against LSU, who didn't really have a good defense. However, they did beat Penn State in their bowl game last year, which does kind of indicate that the tide is starting to turn and they can win the big games. If this were at home for Georgia, I would have probably picked Georgia to win, but by virtue of it being in Oxford, which is a place Georgia doesn't really go to that often, I say Ole Miss is probably going to go ahead and catch the Bulldogs to beat them. Which, if the two of us are correct here, that would mean that Georgia's winning streak in the regular season that they currently got going on would end at 47 games
yeah,
and giving them their first regular season defeat since 2020.
yep,
Unfortunately, you then have to go to Sanford Stadium to play Tennessee.
yep.
And what's your thoughts here?
I think that if the last few years have been any indication, I think that Kirby and in Georgia, really know how to stop the Josh Heupel offense, better than anyone. Um, it appears, I just don't think that they really haven't, shown in in the last few matchups that they really have what it takes, to really be able to compete with us. So yeah, I got this one as a win.
The big unknown for this game against Tennessee is their new quarterback, Nico Lamalaliva.
E-
I don't know how to pronounce his last name. There's a whole bunch
Iamalia,
and there's a whole bunch of
yeah,
memes
yeah,
and there's a whole bunch of memes you can make about that last name, like
mm,
I'm about to leave
mhm.
you.
Yeah. I'm about to leave it. I think it's Iamaliava. Yeah.
And I thought Tonga Vailoa was difficult to pronounce. But
Yeah.
you get them at home, and Tennessee always struggles in Sanford Stadium. And also, too, I had big expectations of Tennessee last year. I thought they were going to go 10-2, finish third for the SEC. They didn't. They went 8-4, and I think finished third in their own division. But anyway, Tennessee is showing signs that they've peaked under your head coach Josh Heupel. And not to mention, Kirby just has Josh Heupel's number in this series. So give me Georgia over Tennessee. And then he kind of got the cool down game against UMass, which I don't think I really had to ask you your opinion on this game, but I will.
I think UMass is it is pretty tough. I think they'll be able to keep it close, but I think that we'll be able to just edge out the win. Yeah.
Keep it close. More like destroy them. I would be surprised if you didn't beat them by 50. Go ahead and give me Georgia in the game easily. And then finally, you have your out of conference rival, the Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets. What's your thoughts?
Yeah. I think that we're gonna beat Georgia Tech. I mean, they're just our little brother. I mean, we own the Nerds. Uh, so yeah, I think that's gonna be a win. Yeah.
Kind of share the same feeling. Georgia Tech kind of on the rise, though they're not going to be able to contend with big
Yeah.
Power 5 programs like Georgia yet. So there you have it. Both of us have Georgia going 11-1, and both of us have that one loss coming against Ole Miss. Now I'm going to ask you a few questions. First off, if Georgia does go 11-1, is that enough to get them to the SEC title game?
Yeah. Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
I think so too. I think Georgia is going to go to the SEC title game. I'm not going to reveal who I think they're going to be facing yet because I have yet to preview them.
Right.
And
Yes.
by
Yes.
extension, I think Georgia with an 11-1 record not only goes to the SEC title game, I think they also should easily get into the new 12-team college football playoff. Now, the other question I want to ask is that we both predict an 11-1. But which do you think is more likely? Do you think they go undefeated and maybe actually win that Ole Miss game? Or do you think they go 10-2, losing the Ole Miss game in some other game?
Nah, well, let's see. Yeah, I think it is. It is more likely that we go 12-0 than that we go 10-2. But yeah, I don't expect us to go undefeated this year because like we already talked about, we've been 12-0 3 years in a row. So I think that that we're bound to, to lose a game this year. So either to Alabama or Texas or Ole Miss.
Yeah, I would have to agree with that statement. I think 12-0 is more likely for Georgia than 10-2. Maybe they do manage to find a way to win the Ole Miss game like they've done pretty much every time we expect them to lose. They do find a way to win. So maybe they do find a way to go 12-0 for the fourth year in a row. But I don't think any SEC team is going undefeated this year because the SEC is just so stacked this year. You got Alabama, Ole Miss, Tennessee, Missouri, maybe, or LSU, maybe, already expected to do good. And then you add the fact that Texas is coming in. They predicted to go really well. The SEC is just going to be stacked this year. And when you consider that Georgia has to play, they do have Clemson, but I don't think that's really going to be one. But the teams that are currently ranked that Georgia has to play, Clemson, Kentucky somehow is ranked. I don't know how. Alabama, Texas, Ole Miss, and Tennessee. So as of right now, Georgia has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 opponents that are currently ranked. Now, obviously, obviously, that as the season goes on, that number could go up or it could go down, or it could stay somehow exactly the same. But having that many ranked opponents on your schedule really decreases the odds that you're going to go undefeated. And that's why I have Georgia ultimately going 11-1. And I think that one loss is most likely to go to Ole Miss. So that's why I'm giving Ole Miss the nod as the team that beats Georgia this year. But anyway, there you have it. That's our Georgia season preview and prediction video. Thank you very much, Viktube, for joining in. If you're not subscribed to Vic's channel, subscribe. I'm going to leave a link to his channel in the description. For Viktube, this is Roll Tide 99 signing out. Next team, I'm going to go ahead and predict the Florida State Seminoles.